Good Thursday morning, and welcome back to Commentators Corner, episode number 26, here to close out the month of March. Tyler Reedy and Brendan Preisman here with you this morning, and Brendan, we'll talk about prep sports to start things off in a moment, but then starting to wind down a little bit. We finally gotten past the huge rush of NFL free agency and MLB lockout and March Madness. Still some lingering things to talk about, but good amount of stuff on the schedule here today.
Certainly, and you said we're kind of in a dead zone right now, but that'll pick right back up soon. NBA playoffs start in 2 weeks. I believe hockey playoffs also start fairly soon.
Start of May,
so that's about a month or so from now. Opening day in a week for baseball.
Yep.
Final four this weekend for March Madness, so certainly plenty to talk about, but one thing we should talk about is the prep spring sports that, as of right now, still are undefeated, and we'll start with baseball because they have just been dominant all year. Currently a 62 run differential, 79 to 17.
Wow.
They've scored at least 9 runs in every game but one. And no opponent has scored more than 3 except for Omaha Central in a 15-7 game that was the second game of the season. And the offense is just absolutely incredible right now.
Yeah, prep baseball off to a really solid start. Haven't played a ton of high-level competition yet, but that changed on Monday night. Junior Jays went down to West Side, number 6 team in the state, prep the number 4 team in the state. Junior Jays beat the Warriors by a final score of 7-3 on a 5-inning, no earned run starting pitching performance from Grant Wagner. Offense, like you said, came up with some big hits as well. And Tuesday, a game you and Jack did together, 14-2 over Papio South in a long game, a 9-run third inning. It was 14-0 by the end of the third.
Yeah.
Another strong starting outing by Lou Schneckenberger, and the Junior Jays just keeping it rolling. Offense certainly looking formidable to start the year.
Yeah, in that third inning, 6 different guys reached base twice, so you've got that. I'm loading up the averages right now. For all those guys with 10 or more plate appearances, Prep's got 6 guys batting 400 or better right now. So
that'll play.
Yeah, that'll play very well, in fact. The bats are hot. Another thing that's hot right now is the Creighton Prep soccer team, which is currently, according to the Omaha World Herald, the best soccer team in the state right now.
There we go.
Coming off on Monday was one of the biggest soccer wins that I can remember in my prep career, honestly. Going to Omaha South, the Mavericks always...
Packers.
The Packers.
You did it again.
Their logo looks like UNO's logo, so I just assume they're the Mavericks, but they're not. The Packers, always a formidable team. I believe the 2-time defending state champions heading into this year. Ranked number 1, were undefeated, and Prep kind of fixed that quickly. They ended up winning that game 4-0 in a game that wasn't really all that close, and where time of possession was dominated by the Junior Jays. Since after their game against Millard North, which was their second game of the year, they've allowed 1 goal total and scored 14. Goal differential of 16 right now, 19-3, and they're 5-0. And I mean, that South game, holy cow, this team's ceiling is high.
Yeah, and I mean, what were we talking about with the guys in the media day interview on Sunday? They all said we got to get off to a great start in that South game. We got to jump on them early if we want to have a good chance at winning it. And sure enough, 2 goals in the first 10-15 minutes of the match. Thomas Basali had 2 overall in the game. John Burns, our good friend, was named player of the match by Nebraska Soccer Talk. But not surprising because we didn't expect the Junior Jays to win. I mean, we know they have a shot to compete with anybody in the state, especially with this year's team. But surprising because you just don't see a Prep Omaha South game decided by that wide of a margin. Usually it's coming down to a last-second goal or extra time, and even in the case of last year in the 2019 championship game, penalty kicks. But this time, Junior Jays, like you said, dominated from the start, and it's a big win to feel good about. I was talking to Peter Hoover, one of the midfielders, after practice on Tuesday. He said intensity wasn't there as much coming off of the South game going into practice Tuesday, but we'll see if Prep has enough to bounce back from that and avoid a letdown, because Junior J soccer team does play today, Thursday afternoon at 4:30, playing against South Sioux City. The snow and the clouds should clear out by then, but it'll be fairly nippy, fairly cold for that one. But Junior J's soccer and baseball roaring to start 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the intensity is low, but when these games start and the 80 minutes start going, I have not seen a better team yet this year. Even against Scott Catholic, where Scott was dominating possession for a good chunk of the first half, held a 1-0 lead well into the second half. Prep was just playing with an unmatched intensity. Eventually, Simon Metcalf got the goal that knotted it at 1, then the winner to make it a 2-1 game over one of the best teams in Class B in Scott Catholic. So this is very easily a Prep team that could bring home the title in both soccer and baseball. And speaking of titles, let's talk about the one that will be decided in just a couple of weeks, the college basketball title. It was a great tournament, but the Elite Eight, not great. Not great. Lot of blowouts. A lot of teams, Miami, St. Peter's, finally running into competition who they just could not quite match up against. We do have an 8 seed in the Final Four, though, so we got that going for us. So, Tyler, I'll let you get right into introducing these teams because it should be a fun Final Four.
Oh, yeah. First of all, my bracket's been dead for about a week now. It was looking great going into the Elite Eight. I think my whole Final Four was still intact with the exception of Auburn. And then in the span of about 21 hours, I went from being in the top 5 of all of my bracket pools to having no points possible left on the board because my Final Four was dead. But yeah, Duke and North Carolina, 2 versus 8 seed game. That'll be the nightcap on Saturday. Coach K making his final run and making it a memorable one. A lot of people were talking down on Duke a little bit, saying they're only as good as they are with the record they have because they've played in a weak ACC. And the ACC actually ended up being pretty good, spitting 3 teams out of the Elite Eight. But Duke lost the conference championship game to Virginia Tech. A lot of people were saying team wasn't as talented as most Coach K teams, but Duke has rolled right along all the way into the Final Four. They'll play North Carolina, who has gotten really hot at the right time. Armando Bacot, Brady Manick, Love. North Carolina has the scores, and that offense has proven to be one of the most elite in the country throughout this tournament, and even down the stretch when they beat Duke in Coach K's final game at Cameron Indoor, dropped 100 on NC State, I believe, about halfway through conference play as well. And then the first game on Saturday is number 2 Villanova and number 1 KU. Kansas destroyed Miami, who had beaten Auburn. 76-50 was the final score of that one in the Elite Eight. Kansas, like North Carolina, has gotten hot at the right time. Like Duke, there have been some questions about KU. Can they be consistent? Can they come up big in the pivotal games, the pivotal moments? And they certainly have. Ochai Agbaji, David McCormick have been great. Remy Martin has emerged as an elite scorer off the bench. And then Villanova had to scratch and claw their way to take down number 5 Houston, 50-44. They did lose Justin Moore to a tournament-ending Achilles injury, so we'll see how the Wildcats bounce back from that. But it's definitely one of the blue-bloodiest Final Fours we've seen, Brendan.
Yeah, all 4 teams have, I think, at least 3 titles. It's just incredible, the history at stake here. And you did talk about Coach K's potential last game, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit more. Hubert Davis, the former North Carolina guard, there was actually a point earlier in the year where some North Carolina fans were actively calling for him to be fired because the team wasn't living up to expectations. They weren't performing as well as everybody had hoped and all that. But they fixed it since then. They made a Final Four run for a team that almost nobody actually had making a deep run. I certainly didn't. And as you mentioned, a very balanced team. Armando Bacot, Caleb Love, and Brady Manick all averaging over 15 points a game. R.J. Davis averages 13 as well. And then they've got a guy like Leaky Black who provides great intensity from the guard position as well. But it's nobody on North Carolina who's going to decide this game. I think it's going to be Paolo Banchero, who's been mentioned as like the guy who's going to go top 3 basically all year. It's him, it's Chet Holmgren, and it's Jabari Smith. Holmgren of Gonzaga and Jabari Smith of Auburn, who are both out of the tournament by now. But Banchero averaging 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, in the running for most of the Player of the Year awards, obviously. And March Madness especially, it's a little different than the NBA because the NBA, you actually need like a quality team top to bottom to win things. But in March Madness, you can win the whole darn thing if you've just got one spectacular, outstanding player. We saw that with Carmelo Anthony and Syracuse in 2003. We saw that with Kemba Walker and UConn in 2011. This is absolutely a Duke team that could win the title, and if they do, it's going to be because they've rode the broad shoulders of Banchero. And to the Villanova and Kansas game, which is the earlier game, I think that Villanova would be more of like a 2013 Louisville situation, losing Justin Moore, much like that Louisville team lost Kevin Ware, who was so impactful to that team. But Villanova's still got a lot of guys who can score. Colin Gillespie, Jermaine Samuels, Caleb Daniels, all averaging double figures. They've got Chris Arcidiacono, the younger brother, I believe, of Ryan Arcidiacono, who won Most Outstanding Player a couple years ago. And Jay Wright is, I'd say, the best coach of the past decade, easily. So they've got that going for them as well. And then Kansas, as you mentioned, Ochai Agbaji, Christian Braun, Jalen Wilson, David McCormick, Remy Martin. They're a stacked team from top to bottom. They deserve to win the Big 12, which they did. They deserve to make this Final Four. Right now, I'm leaning Kansas Duke in the national championship game, but I don't know. It's pretty up in the air, which is really the best part of the tournament.
Yeah, I think Kansas Villanova is the game I feel more confident in picking, going with the Jayhawks, just because they've been on such a roll. They've gotten such great contributions across the board, especially with Martin off the bench, and just don't know exactly how Villanova is going to look and set up without Moore. So I definitely take Kansas. But yeah, Duke Carolina, it's so hard because you want to pick Duke because Coach K, all the talent there, but UNC's so hot.
Yeah, according to ESPN's BPI, Villanova's actually slightly favored, but only 50.8%. Then you go to UNC Duke, you'd think that'd be more of a toss-up, but Duke is 68.5% chance to win. And we already know what happens when Duke goes into a game overconfident, like, hey, guys, it's Coach K, let's get this done. Because they did it at the end of the regular season, and they ended up getting run out of Cameron Indoor by the Tar Heels. So I would say Coach K has been around the block several times by now. He knows what his team is going to have to do to get this done. This is not going to be one of those things where he comes into it like wanting the adulation and just being like, yes, thank you all for supporting me through my last year. He's going to be, look, guys, block out the outside noise. There's one job we have tonight. That's to beat Carolina. I think they can do it, but the Banchero-Bacot matchup is going to be very, very interesting to watch.
Yep, Kansas looking for its first national title since 2009. Duke looking for its first since 2015. North Carolina first since 2017. And Villanova, who won in 2016 and 2018, looking to prove that even-number-yeared Villanova has something special to it once again. But, yep, men's side looking great for Saturday. The women's Final Four is set as well. That'll be tomorrow night at 6 and 8:30. South Carolina and Louisville, a 1-versus-1 seed matchup. Creighton Lady Jays finally were knocked out of the tournament after their magical run from the 10 seed all the way to the Elite Eight before a 30-point loss to South Carolina. And then Stanford and Connecticut will be the other side of that Final Four, number 1 versus number 2 seed matchup. With some closer games in that Elite Eight, Stanford beat your Texas Longhorns 59-50, and Connecticut barn burner against 1 seed North Carolina State 91-87.
Oh, yeah, I want to talk about that Connecticut game because I actually did end up watching the end of that. Paige Buchers, the UConn star, is absolutely incredible. She's one of the best women's college basketball players I've seen in a long, long time. She ended that game with 27 points and 6 rebounds. I think she had something like 19 in the second half and in overtime. And it was just incredible to watch her shot making down the stretch because she would not miss. And then you look at the team on the other side of the bracket from them, South Carolina, who I think is the defending champs coming into this. I know they've won one recently, but they've got Aaliyah Boston in the middle. She's 6'5", and she is just absolutely incredible. 16.8 points, 12.2 rebounds per game. And against Creighton, she had 19 points and 7 rebounds. The first time in 26 games she didn't have a double-double. So, yeah, an absolutely incredible player. Louisville's going to have their hands full dealing with her. But, much like the men's tournament, this women's tournament is also really blue blood-esque. You've got UConn, who's obviously been dominating women's college basketball for the better part of the last century. Stanford's been making some runs. Louisville and South Carolina have as well. 1, and 2 seeds. But, those are both really interesting games. Stanford's actually favored by 1.5 points in that UConn game, but I'd be really interested to see how that goes. I'm looking forward to that game.
Yeah, both Final Fours are going to be fantastic for sure. A lot of close games expected, a lot of really high-level basketball programs going head-to-head tomorrow night and Saturday night, and then the championships Monday for the men's, and I believe it'd be Sunday for the women. I'll double-check that. If I can pull this up here. Wait for it. Yep, Sunday says to be decided, but guessing Sunday evening for that one. So, yep, 4 days of championship basketball coming up for your weekend. Should be fun.
Yeah. And this is why college football should expand the playoff. You can expand to 64 teams and still get the exact 4 teams that you want in the Final Four.
But you actually get to have fun doing it.
You're saying you wouldn't want to watch a 63-game college football tournament?
Well, no, what I'm saying is you'd get to the same 4 teams that you want to see, like Alabama, Clemson, but you'd get all the matchups in between like, say, a 24 seed and a 31 seed. That'd be a great game.
Yes, exactly. Expand the playoff, baby.
64.
We're getting Texas in there one way or another.
Okay. You might need a 128-team playoff for that one, but
funny guy.
It's true after last year. But yeah, anyway.
Can't wait for Notre Dame to lose to a 62 seed in the opening round of that. Or no, I guess it'd be a 16 seed because that's how things work. But yeah. Anyway,
basketball.
Basketball. Well, we were just talking about basketball, so we'll continue, except we will move to the part where players have been able to legally get compensated for their work before last year, and that is the NBA. Clinchings starting to happen around the league. The Phoenix Suns have already clinched the best record in the league by a mile. They're currently 8.5 games ahead of the second-best team in the league, the Memphis Grizzlies. Currently at a record of 62-14, which is an 81.6 winning percentage, which averages out to almost 67 wins for the year. That's what they're projected to get. The NBA wins record is 73. And looking at all the other teams who have won 66 or more games, there are a total of 17. All but 5 of them won the finals. So this Suns team, and what I'm going to do in a sec is I'm going to go over the 5 teams I'm most scared of to face in the playoffs and the 5 teams I'm least scared of facing in the playoffs. The Suns are number 1 on my most scary list. They've won 9 in a row. Chris Paul is back and healthy. They've got a point differential of 8.4, which is at least 2 points better than any other team in the league. Devin Booker is playing like a first-team All-NBA guy. They are frightening. I do not want to see any part of that team in a playoff series unless it's the conference finals or the finals. And even then, no. Please do not make me deal with that team. Number 2 on that list is the Milwaukee Bucks, the defending champs. They are currently a game back of the Miami Heat for the second spot. They just beat the Philadelphia 76ers by 2 a couple of nights ago. And they've got Giannis. They've got Chris Middleton, and they've got Drew Holiday, which was the big 3 of their team that won the title last year. Pretty self-explanatory. Giannis, I think, is still the best player in the world. I think he should win his 3rd MVP this year. I do not want to face him in a playoff series at all because, as we saw last year in the finals, he's basically unstoppable. 3rd on this list is the Dallas Mavericks. Had to deal with them twice in a row now in the playoffs as a Clippers fan. Make it stop. please. Luka Doncic for the regular season, averaging 28 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. And as always, those stats will take a jump in the playoffs, which is ridiculous to even think about. Let me look. All right, so we're going to go to his playoff stats. Let's just go from last year. Played 7 games, 35.7 points, 7.9 rebounds, 10.3 assists. Shot 49% from the field, 40% from 3, and 53% from the free throw line. I do not want to play him at all.
Well, you might have to make a decision sitting at 8th right now and Dallas sitting at 3, either go through the play-in or go up against Dallas if the standings hold.
Well, the Clippers are not going to make it to the 6th seed. They're basically locked into 8th right now, barring a massive collapse by them and a massive run by the Pelicans.
That is an 8-game difference. I just now saw that.
Yes, but Paul George is back. So were I not a Clippers fan, the Clippers would actually be on my list because there's a real chance that they also have Kawhi Leonard back potentially for a first-round series. And do you think any team in the league, barring maybe the Suns or Bucks, wants to play that?
No.
I know the Mavericks don't. The Jazz definitely don't. And I don't think any team in the East wants to. Speaking of the East, my next team is the Boston Celtics. They have been on a rip-roaring tear since January. They lost 2 in a row for the first time in a long time.
Lost 5 games since January 29th.
Yeah.
It's 2 months.
They've got that. The big news out of their camp, though, Robert Williams, their star center, did have an Achilles injury. So he is out for 4 to 6 weeks. But that does mean he could return for the second round of the playoffs, assuming they're locked into the 4 seed right now, which they could go as high as 1 potentially or as low as 6. Right now, as with the standings the way they are, they can face the Bulls, and then they'd face the Heat or the 8 seed. So they could have Robert Williams back for that series. That is a team that could very easily make a conference finals or potentially even a finals run if everything breaks right, because their offense and defensive come up this year has just been incredible to behold. So I don't want to play them. And then the final team I don't want to play, and this is coming from more of a team-specific standpoint, is the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is either the best or second best player in the world right now. There's a very real chance he could win his second MVP in a couple of weeks. Somebody at ESPN just did like a straw poll where they asked like 100 or so MVP voters, who are you voting for? 64 said Jokic. So with 2 weeks to go in the season, it certainly appears like he's going to be the first guy since Steph Curry to win back-to-back, or first guy since Giannis, to win back-to-back MVP awards, which would be incredible. And I'm not sure who teams have that can, like, guard him. I know the Warriors don't have anybody that can guard him. Rudy Gobert is basically a defensive liability in the playoffs, so the Jazz can't guard him. The Mavericks are going to be relying on Maxi Kleber, who's a solid player but not a lockdown defender. The Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr., who might be able to handle him, and then the Suns have DeAndre Ayton. But it's only maybe the Suns and the Grizzlies who actually have a guy who they could look at and say, like, yeah, we can let you guard Jokic. We'll be fine with that. Everybody else is liable to get torched by Jokic, so I don't want to play them. The teams I do want to play, and I'll just go a lot quicker for these, I would want to play the Cavaliers. They've been really injured as of late. They're basically down to just Darius Garland after that young core looked really good earlier this year. I want to play the Jazz. History of choking in the playoffs, just blew a 25-point lead to the Clippers the other night. To me, they seem like a very easy out. I very much want to play the Lakers on the off chance that they get in. They are horrible right now. I think only like 3 teams have a worse record since the All-Star break. The Lakers are 3-7 in their last 10, which is tied for the worst record by any team in the playoff picture. I kind of want to play the Warriors. I don't like how that team's looking. I'm not sure when Steph's going to get back. I'm not sure if he's going to be fully Steph form for the playoffs. And if you're telling me I just got to beat Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, and half of Steph Curry in a 7-game series, absolutely I'll take that chance. I'll take that chance every day. And then I also want to play the Bulls. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan have been good this season, but they've kind of cooled off. And to me, that team just – they don't have the feel of a team that could hang with a team like the Bucks, the Celtics, or the Nets. So I'll say I'll take them first round without batting too much of an eye, and I'll be comfortable with that. But yeah, 2 weeks to go in the NBA season. We'll have more coverage of that to go, and now we can transition to hockey, which has got about a month to go if you want.
Yeah, and I'll talk about the college situation as well first, because that tournament is ongoing as well, reaching its Final Four, which will be...
Ooh, the Frozen Four.
Yep, Frozen Four, Thursday, April 7th, and Saturday, April 9th. Still got some time before that one, but the matchups are set. Michigan, number 1 overall seed in the tournament, the Big Ten tournament champion. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, but Michigan will be there at TD Garden in Boston. Minnesota State, CCHA tournament. You might remember that crazy way they won the tournament in overtime, with the goal being disallowed almost an hour after it was scored and them having to score again. And then Denver out of the NCHC regular season conference champ there. And Minnesota, the regular season champion in the Big Ten. So some blue bloods there as well out of college hockey, but should be fun. Mostly consistent of top seeds. And then NHL, as you said, reaching the final stretch about a month ago in the season before it ends on April 29th. The top offenses in the league are occupying the top spots in the league. Florida Panthers, 96 points, 271 goals scored. They're 27-6 at home. They got off to that ridiculous start to the season. They were undefeated through 10 or 11 games, if I remember correctly. That's helped set them up to retain a top spot in what's been a highly competitive Eastern Conference. Carolina leads the Metropolitan Division with 96 points as well. They're 24-5-4 at home. Tampa Bay and Toronto round out the Atlantic at 90 points and 89 respectively. New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins at 93 and 90 for second and third in the Metropolitan. And then the wild card, Boston Bruins at 87, Washington Capitals at 84, and then there's a massive drop-off. The wild card is almost set with a whole month to go because Washington has 84 points, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are the next team down the line at 69.
Look at the point differential difference. Washington is plus 28, and Columbus is minus 31. If anything, I'd say maybe look out for the Islanders because they've only got a point differential of -3.
You got to hurry, though.
Yeah, they've been in a lot of tight games. But, yeah, they don't have that much to go. They got to get on the horse and go quick.
Yeah, and then the
West, though.
Not as top-heavy in the West, but Colorado, they've reached 100 points. That offense is lethal with Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Gabe Landeskog. 26-4-3 at home for them and 255 goals scored. That leads the conference. Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues, second and third in the Central with 86 and 83 respectively. Calgary Flames, who haven't had much playoff success at all. I think they've only been to the second round once in the Johnny Gaudreau era, if that at all. They've only made a couple playoff appearances in April and May, but they're sitting on top of the Pacific Division, which is a little bit weaker than the Central, but Calgary, 88 points with a 40-18-8 record. Los Angeles Kings, a bit of a surprise team, a lot of youth there, but they found themselves at second in the Pacific at 82, and then Edmonton, that uber-talented offensive Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl and company, third in the Pacific at 81, and then the wild card, Nashville Predators, first with 82 points, and the Vegas Golden Knights hanging on for dear life at 78 points, but Dallas Stars and Winnipeg Jets knocking on the door with 77 points and 76 points, just 1 and 2 behind Vegas respectively on the outside looking in. So, yeah, a lot of highly competitive games to watch for in the final month, that's for sure. But Brennan, unless you got anything else we want to add, we can we can probably talk about NFL a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, so real quick, Connor McDavid does have 100 points. I believe he's one of the first to do that in a while, get 100 points in 4 seasons. So congratulations to Connor McDavid. And then first in international football, the United States is going to the World Cup despite a 2-0 loss to Costa Rica last night. They still do have enough points to have clinched one of the CONCACAF spots. So congratulations to Team USA. I wasn't that big of a soccer fan back in 2014, but I do remember very much enjoying that run they made. Tim Howard had a couple of great games. They beat Belgium, or drew with Belgium, I think. It was a fun experience, even though I wasn't that big of a soccer fan back then. So should be fun in 2022 as well. Then in NFL news, 2 big things to talk about: the Buccaneers and Lamar Jackson. And we can start with Lamar Jackson. I talked to you about this before the podcast, and I think you kind of agreed with me. Here are the guys off the top of my head that right now have a better NFL resume than Lamar Jackson. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a longevity standpoint, could technically throw Matt Ryan in there as well, but there's no question Lamar Jackson's more talented than him.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd have to agree with that list.
He's in the final year of his rookie deal. Still has not received an extension, which is odd considering other guys such as Mahomes, Herbert, or Allen are all in line to receive massive extensions. Deshaun Watson just got a huge new contract from the Browns. So
was Russell Wilson on your list? Guys more accomplished than Lamar?
Yeah, you could throw Wilson in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. But, like, for the under 30 guys, it's him and Mahomes, and that's basically it right now. And yet, I'm not sure if he's going to get his contract extended by the Ravens. And he wants to be there. I think the Ravens want him to be there, but I don't think they want to pay him the amount of money that he wants and that he thinks he deserves. The way he looks at it is, I'm one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the league right now. Here's what those guys are making. Why can't I make that much? And the Ravens are looking at it like, well, here's the thing. We've won 1 playoff game with you. You were injured most of last season. And Tyler Huntley did a reasonable impression of you for a lot less money. So, I don't know. And I've been a Lamar fan for a while. I remember, I think it was Madden 18. I did a little bit of like a franchise thing where I made him the starter and then immediately set both single-season records for passing and rushing yards with him. Went undefeated and won the Super Bowl with that team. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but to me it feels like the NFL is becoming one of those leagues where if you don't have a sure thing at quarterback, you're either rolling the dice or tanking. To me, it still feels like a healthy Lamar is a sure thing at quarterback. And if I'm the Ravens, I feel like I have to give him whatever sum of money possible to make sure he stays.
Yeah, I'd agree because the upside is there. The upside is as good as any quarterback in the league, quite frankly, because when you look back at his MVP season in 2019, you see quarterbacks that win the MVP, and there's almost different tiers of MVP because the last 2 years, Rodgers and Brady, and even Tom Brady before in 2017, those years were just kind of, okay, yes, they have the best stats to win MVP, but it's not like they were lighting up the league and everybody's talking about this quarterback. Most people are talking about several quarterbacks equally, and one guy just has a slight edge, whether it be playoff positioning, team standings, or statistics. But the thing about Lamar in 2019 and Mahomes in 2018, their MVPs were basically, I would say, platinum MVPs because the whole league was just going ballistic over how good they were, how well they could take over a game. I mean, there were some highlights from Lamar in 2019 where it was the spin against the Bengals, awesome. the 5 touchdowns against the Rams, whatever it was. He couldn't be stopped for a good 2-month period there. He was putting up numbers that we just hadn't seen in the league since Mike Vick.
It's like the 2013 Peyton Manning MVP season where it's just like, holy cow. This guy every week is coming up with stuff that we have not seen in a long, long time. So, I don't know. I think they should re-sign him because he's the MVP.
Yeah.
And, we can go across all sports. The only time MVPs have left their teams, within a recent span after winning the MVP, it's either because the MVP left or because they were, in their mid to late 30s and were no longer good. LeBron James in 2009, 2010, MVP. He didn't leave because Cleveland didn't want to re-sign him. He left because he didn't want to play for Cleveland anymore. That's not the case for Lamar. He wants to stay in Baltimore long term. He seems very committed to that team. He seems really happy to be there. I think because it was the best system for him when he was drafted, and it remains the best system for him today. He doesn't want to leave, but the Ravens front office, which is been one of the smartest front offices in the league for some time now. I'm not sure if they want him to stay. And it kind of sucks.
Yeah. He's definitely one of those guys that's making up the incredible group of young AFC quarterbacks. Burrow, Herbert, Allen, Watson potentially reemerging back into the picture, and then, of course, Jackson and Mahomes. So you want to keep that conference as intact as possible, keep guys locked into the situations they're in, because so far they've been fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we can wrap this thing up if you're ready for it.
What is happening?
A lot of America was asking that question Sunday.
Yeah, we're gonna do a twofold one. We're gonna do a sports-related one and then a non-sports-related one, both involving what seemed like a slap in the face. So the first one, Bruce Arians yesterday announced he was retiring from coaching, and that Todd Bowles, and the Buccaneers later announced that Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, would take over as the head man. Personally, looking at this from like an outside standpoint, it's a smart move for all parties. Todd Bowles is a great head coaching candidate, and I'm glad he finally gets a shot. Arians won the Super Bowl, so there wasn't much left for him to actually coach for, and I'm glad that after all those years with the Cardinals, he finally was able to win the big one. So that wasn't that shocking, but it was surprising how abrupt it happened. It wasn't like the Brady retirement and then unretirement, where it's like, oh, here's some leaks there. Tom Brady is thinking about retirement. He might retire. We're not sure. There wasn't any of that with Arians. It's just Todd Bowles is the new Buccaneers head coach. Oh, wait, what? Like that's what it was like for me anyway. I don't know what your experience was with that. But
yeah, I mean, I'm a little shocked, like you were, about just how short the stint ended up being for Bruce Arians. I thought he'd wait a couple more years, just especially with Brady coming back and all of that. But I mean, yeah, he retired initially in 2018 and then jumped into the broadcast booth in 2019, or it might have been 2017, 2018, and then came back to the Buccaneers. But yeah, only ends up being 2-3 years, which is definitely a little bit surprising. But Bruce Arians has an incredible career behind him. Nothing wrong with hanging him up at this point. He's got tremendous slew of accomplishments, and will be great with whatever he decides to do in the future, whether he continues going forward with football-related, potentially broadcasting, or maybe a halftime show type of thing, or if he decides to kick back, spend time with his family.
Just take a break, He's already got the Super Bowl. He doesn't really need to do anything else. And then the second one, the Oscars were, Sunday night?
Sunday night.
Yeah. Record lows in viewing after last year. This year, views were up 58% to like 15.8 million, mostly because of a certain incident that happened between Chris Rock and Will Smith. Basically, the gist of it is Rock was making jokes, and he made one joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, who has alopecia, which is a hair condition that requires one to shave their head or get like bald spots and whatnot. Said that she should be in a G.I. Jane reboot. G.I. Jane, of course, being a movie where the female lead ended up shaving her head. Will Smith, Jada's husband, took offense to that, strode onto the stage and smacked Rock. At first, it kind of seemed like a joke. Like, everybody was laughing. Rock was like, wow.
Whoa, dude.
Will Smith just smacked the crap out of me. And everybody was like, oh, wow, that's a pretty funny bit. That's kind of interesting. And then he keeps going, and then Smith begins yelling from his seat, at which point he sat back down. Keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth. Yelled that twice, and at that point it's like, oh, okay, this is serious. So now we've had the dialogue for like since the slap happened, basically. Now it's all like, oh, is what Will Smith did embarrassing? Should he have stuck up for his wife? Should he have slapped Rock publicly? What should Chris Rock have done? Should Chris Rock have fought back? There's so many different ways you could look at the situation, but for my money, it's one of the weirdest live TV nights since January 6th, 2020. Or was it 21? 21. Yeah. It's one of the weirdest TV days since January 6th, 2021, because you don't expect to see stuff like this live,
Yeah, That's just weird. I mean, if you're asking whether or not Will Smith, was in the right, standing up for his wife, I'm totally fine with him, doing something in response, because it was clear his wife was not pleased with the comment at all. And I just think Will Smith probably could have done something differently other than disrupting the whole flow of the show completely. Because the other factor that you have to consider, not only did he slap Chris Rock and there's a whole reaction to that, the whole reaction to it completely drowned out all the other incredible things that happened at the Oscars.
Will Smith won the Oscar.
Yeah, people aren't going to remember, the accomplishments of most of the rest of the nominees, because this whole thing overshadows it. So, Will Smith, you're Will Smith. You have backstage access. You have ways to access Chris Rock potentially after the show if you want to give him a piece of your mind. You don't have to do it right in the middle of the whole thing. But that's just me.
The physical violence does seem a bit excessive, yeah. But I guess congratulations to Will Smith on the Oscar for Best Actor after over 30 years in the industry. Well deserved, but congratulations to Chris Rock winning the Oscar for Strongest Chin, because he took a shot.
He didn't even rub it for the 1 minute he was talking afterward.
I think he wanted to. He was like, wow, dude. And there was a second, in his immediate post-lap monologue where you could tell he was pausing for a second. He wanted to go all in on Will Smith and family. He wanted to do it very badly from what it looked like. He elected not to. I respect him for that. I think jokes that could be construed about being about someone else's medical condition are a bit out of hand. But Chris Rock is a comedian. It's his job to make people laugh and make people uncomfortable. So, I don't know. It's a crazy situation, but hey, it's a crazy world, and we're just here to talk about it.
Yep. So that'll do it for episode number 26. As we move from March into April. Man, already April. How about that? Yeah.
2 months left of school.
Yeah, can't believe that. Less than a month and a half, quite frankly. But yeah, 2 months straight up. Final Four this weekend. Men and women, check it out. Should be some fun games there. We're striding toward the playoffs, NBA and NHL. And opening day, just a week out. Major League Baseball. I'll have a full preview on that when we get back here next Wednesday. I won't be here on Friday, so we'll come back in here on Wednesday for episode number 27. And that'll do it for 26. Brennan, anything else before we close that out here?
Watch out for the Clippers, baby.
Oh,
Paul
boy.
George is back. Norman Powell is working out without pain. And Kawhi Leonard, there's a very real chance that he comes back for the playoffs. I'm just saying, if you're not Phoenix, you do not want to play that team at all.
What's a show without some Brendan Clippers propaganda?
There will be none.
Of course.
The Clippers propaganda will continue until morale improves, baby.
All right, that'll do it for 26. See you next Wednesday for 27. Have a great week.